You're taking a look inside Kansas politics. Welcome in. I'm Rebecca Chung. Today, we're taking a look at state gun laws. One of the latest vetoes coming down from the governor is for a bill that would require the State Board of Education to standardize firearm safety training in Kansas schools. Now, this bill drawing a lot of attention in the State House, some from opponents and also supporters of the bill. Joining me now is Mariah Day with the Kansas State Rifle Association. Mariah, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Rebecca.
Well, Mariah, now I know your organization was one of the supporters of this legislation that's now been stalled. First, let's take a look at what the governor had to say about the decision behind her veto of the bill. We spoke with her in an exclusive interview.
I vetoed that bill because that is the purview of the State Board of Education. You know, they're constitutionally mandated to develop and oversee the curriculum. So that was why I did that. It is well past time for us to look at what the vast majority of Kansans want. You know, they support background checks. They support red flag laws. They support the elimination of bump stocks. There are all sorts of things that everyday Kansans, including our responsible gun owners, want to see here as law. Yes, we need to secure the schools, and we've been investing in that over time, but that is not the only part of the solution. We have also got to do something about gun safety and the ability of people to have guns who perhaps should not.
Mariah, hearing those remarks, what are your thoughts on the bill and what the governor has to say?
Sure. So the Eddie Eagle firearm safety bill, quite simply, the intention of the bill is to encourage firearm safety in Kansas. With more than, about 50% of Kansas households having a firearm in the household, it's more than likely that a child would come in contact with a firearm at some point in time. That being the case, it's incredibly important that a child knows what to do in that situation. The Kansas State Rifle Association brought this bill the past several years in an effort to increase safety among kids with the Eddie Eagle idea, the phrase, stop, don't touch, run away, tell a grown-up. It's a pretty simple statement. That's kind of the goal here, is to encourage kids to have safety should they happen upon a firearm, because obviously firearms are not something that little kids should be messing with. They're not a toy.
Now, one of the remarks that were made is that this program puts the onus on children to practice gun safety instead of adults. For grades 1 through 5, the gun safety training program would be based off of the National Rifle Association's Eddie the Eagle program, as you mentioned, which includes videos that tell kids to stop and tell an adult when they come across a gun. But can we trust that a child would actually be able to put this into practice after going through with a program like this?
Absolutely. I think the important thing here is the Kansas educational system understands that kids are smart enough to learn simple phrases, simple lessons to keep themselves safe, as they go through life. In Kansas schools, we already teach fire safety. We teach tornado safety. We teach all of these other, internet safety is another one. Kansas schools already teach these things. We already put the onus on kids to be responsible in those situations, not because they should be the first line of defense in those situations, but because there's always a situation that comes up where other things fall through. As parents, Kansas parents don't avoid telling their kids to look both ways before crossing the street just because they also hold their hand when they cross the street. It's pretty simple to teach the kid common sense safety measures to use in a situation as a backup in case the parent's not there, in case other responsible adults are not present. So I would argue that instead of putting the onus on kids, it's protecting kids by giving them the tools to deal with dangerous situations.
Still, we look at studies from the American Academy of Pediatrics. In 2004, one study found that kids were very good at repeating the messaging of this program, but when actually coming down to putting it into practice, they weren't so good at that. Based on that, what are your thoughts on how effective this program really is?
Sure. So I would, just start off by saying 32 million American kids have gone through this program, the Eddie Eagle Firearm Safety Program. 32 million kids. That's a pretty significant number. It's by far the gold standard in firearm safety education for kids. And there's a reason for that. You know, it's been around for a long time, since the 80s, and it's been updated since then to make it resonate more with kids today. There's all kinds of studies that you know, argue one way or the other as far as the effectiveness across the entire population. But I would argue that if you talk to individuals, Kansas kids on the street, adults who went through the Eddie Eagle Firearm Safety Program as kids, you'll learn that it really did make a big difference in those kids' lives, either at the time or today. So, you know, while you can find studies that may question the effectiveness of the program overall, I think the overwhelming evidence, talking to any Kansan on the street, is that the phrase is not only very memorable, but that it's effective in individual situations.
Now, some opponents have argued that lawmakers backing this bill are more concerned with the NRA as opposed to protecting children. So one point that's been a concern for some is that this bill does not explicitly state that firearms would not be used in course instruction. Why is that? And what are some of the key reasons that the State Rifle Association is backing this bill as opposed to other gun legislation that's been introduced?
Sure. So a big part of it is this bill relates to the Eddie Eagle Firearm Safety Program, in addition to, as you kind of mentioned, the Hunter Education in Our Schools program by the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks for older kids. The Kansas State Rifle Association is backing this bill because the Eddie Eagle program is the gold standard in firearm safety education. With that being the case, the NRA, the National Rifle Association, doesn't market the materials with their logo or other identifying information on it. It's not something to give the NRA credit. It's a program that's designed to help kids be more safe. And as a result, the program has been widely used across the U.S. In both conservative states and left-leaning states. It's not really a political issue when it comes down to it. The thing that's made it political this year in the legislature, and sometimes in the past, has been the fact that the NRA initials are tied to the program. And unfortunately, I would argue the other side frequently turns this into a political issue when it should be a simple firearm safety issue.
And when we come back, how do we address gun violence and safety here in Kansas? Mariah's going to give us his take right after this break.
Performance Tire and Auto, your hometown tire maintenance and repair experts.
Shop, dine, relax. We have it all. Fairlawn Plaza, all together better.
At 2 Men and a Truck, we'll treat you and your belongings like we'd treat our own grandmas.
Here we go! Hello there. Welcome.
Whether we're moving you across town or even across the country.
Hi folks, at Window Design and Remodeling, we build decks of all styles and shapes. With our composite decking, you will never have to worry about splinters or maintenance again. We have different types of handrails to choose from: composite, cable, aluminum, and glass panels with lighted posts and caps. And if you want a roof or shade cover over your deck, we can build that also. For an excellent job and an affordable price, give us a call today. We are your home remodeling specialists.
Explore some of the most beautiful and romantic music. The Topeka Symphony Orchestra, along with TCT, present Oklahoma. Come fall in love with the Topeka Symphony on May 6th at TPAC.
Growing the market for Kansas-made E15 is a win-win for Kansans. What's E15? It's fuel with 15% ethanol compared to the usual 10% in regular unleaded. E15 is more affordable, has better performance, and runs cleaner than regular unleaded, meaning Kansas drivers can go further for less. From helping Kansas farm families by stabilizing grain prices, helping Kansas become more energy independent, and adding more than 4,000 jobs in Kansas, more of our money stays right here at home because of ethanol. Visit fueledbykansas.com to find a station near you.
Welcome back to Inside Kansas Politics. I'm Rebecca Chung, continuing our conversation with Mariah Day on gun laws in Kansas. Mariah, according to the CDC, firearm injuries are a serious public health problem, pointing to more than 45,000 firearm-related deaths in 2020. Now, we've seen shootings like the ones in Nashville, Tennessee, and Alabama. Gun safety has been a large part of this debate over how to address gun violence, and it seems that both sides have very different ways of looking at this issue. We've talked about the gun safety training bill, but what are some other ways that you think gun violence should be addressed in the U.S. and in Kansas?
Sure, thanks for that question, Rebecca. I think a big part of it is going to be, like we already talked about, the firearm safety aspect. Understanding that firearms are a tool and a potentially dangerous tool. However, firearms are also a tool for self-defense. There's many cases every year of firearms being used for self-defense to protect innocent civilians from harm by violent criminals. I think if you look at the statistics for that, it's going to show that anywhere from 500,000 to 1.5 million of those occurrences happen every single year. And those numbers come from reputable sources. I think when it comes down to it, firearms are used in defensive situations to stop a violent attacker far more than they are for violent offenses. And I think our listeners here, viewers, are going to resonate with that because when it comes down to it, Kansans, like much of the rest of the country, understand that firearms are a valuable tool for self-defense. Here in Kansas, we have concealed carry, we have constitutional carry, and Kansans, by and large, understand the importance of those things. So I think that's something that Kansas already understands.
Well, there has been other legislation introduced as well this year that didn't gain as much traction. Some of these safe storage bills would create the crime of unlawful storage of a firearm. There are some Republican legislators in the House that actually spoke in favor of responsible gun ownership and safe storage practices during debates. Is this something that the Kansas State Rifle Association would also support? Why or why not?
Yeah, so the Kansas State Rifle Association opposes mandatory so-called safe storage legislation. And a big reason for that is Americans have the constitutionally protected right to keep and bear arms. And one of the purposes to keep and bear arms is for self-defense. Mandatory firearm storage laws would criminalize a lot of individuals who carry, for instance, in a purse or backpack for self-protection. If they come home from going grocery shopping, for instance, they've got their hands full, so they set their purse on the counter while they go back out to the car to get groceries, for instance. Doing so under these bills that have been introduced would actually criminalize that individual. They would be committing a crime of unlawfully storing a firearm, even if it's a temporary thing. And that really causes a lot of concern for the Kansas State Rifle Association and a lot of responsible gun owners across the state. Obviously, safe storage of firearms is incredibly important. Every responsible firearm owner should know to keep their firearms secured and out of the reach of unauthorized people, especially children. That's something that, I'm personally a firearm instructor, and that's something that I teach every one of my students who comes through a class, to store their firearms safely and securely. But that's something that each individual has to take personal responsibility for. That's not something that the state government or federal government should get involved in and mandate those type of storage laws.
All right, when we come back, we're taking a look at the other side of this issue.
Mental health is about emotional health and brain health.
Healthy children and families, and a healthy Kansas.
Go to acmhck.org to find your local community mental health center.
Renewal by Andersen installers are knowledgeable, professional, and respectful of you and your home throughout the entire process.
We're prepared as soon as we hit the door, what we need, the materials we have, the allotted amount of time. We're not going to leave your home until the installation is absolutely complete.
The experts at Renewal by Andersen work closely with you to help you choose the right style, color, and finishes for your home.
Good quality window, very professional. The sales rep was very professional. The installers were very professional.
We own the entire process. We custom build your windows and install them in your home by only our factory certified master installers.
For a limited time only, get 25% off your entire project, plus a free Smart Sun upgrade, or choose 60 months financing with payments.
Choose energy efficiency, choose durability, choose Renewal by Andersen.
Spring into savings all month long at Vanderbilt's. New for spring, a great selection of Hey Dude, Wendy, and Wally styles. Our best-selling Merrill hikers back in stock starting at $109.99. All styles of men's full blue shorts are now 50% off while supplies last. Save during the month of April with 25% off Carhartt pocket tees.
Work Boot Center, Vanderbilt.
K-State, KU, all sports.
Join us every Sunday night right after 27 News at 10.
As we bring you another exciting week of K-Nation.
Sponsored by K-State Superstore and 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.
Welcome back to Inside Kansas Politics. I'm Rebecca Chung, and joining me today is Shannon Little with Moms Demand Action, a national gun violence activist organization. Shannon, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first I wanted to get your thoughts on this bill that would require the state board to standardize firearm safety training in Kansas schools. Now, this bill would also still allow local schools to adopt the program if they choose to. Still, we've heard comments from the governor and opponents of the bill that this is legislative overreach. Do you agree with that statement? What do you think about that?
Yes, we do believe that this is legislative overreach. This is something that should be decided at the local level. We also don't believe that the NRA's brand of training should be made the law of the land for the state of Kansas. It's been proven to not make Kansans or children any safer from gun violence and unintentional shootings. We think that the responsibility to protect children from gun violence should always be placed on adults, not taught to children in schools, and not being forced to teach the NRA training to children in schools, because it is the law that has been passed in Kansas.
Okay. Well, one of the concerns cited from opponents is that this program could include firearms in classrooms. I know that that's come up. However, there's nowhere in the legislation that would require or makes mention of having firearms in classrooms. Still, there are concerns floating around. Why do you think that is?
Well, there's nothing in the law that prohibits firearms from being used in that training. And also, the training teaches children to tell an adult and to get away from a firearm if they see one. It could be easily used in a training, assumed that someone might use a firearm as a prop to see if children really did know what to do and how to respond if they saw one.
Still, do you think it's warranted to have these concerns if it's not included in the legislation?
I do think it's warranted to have those concerns, because if it's not specifically prohibited in the legislation, it could happen.
Now, for kindergarten and grades 1 through 5, this program would be based off of the National Rifle Association's, as you mentioned, Eddie the Eagle program. So let's pull that up. When I go on the website and take a look at this program, I see a video with a flying eagle and lots of animated characters. Then also some of the messaging stating that kids should stop, don't touch, run away, and tell a grown-up if they come across a gun. It doesn't initially come across as a threat, and some would argue that kids should still take this into consideration if they see a firearm. What's the main concern seeing a program like this? Is it that it's coming from the National Rifle Association? Is it the name? Would more opponents get behind a program like this if it was under maybe a different name?
Well, Rebecca, I think those are all really great things to teach a child if a firearm is left unsecured. However, Moms Demand Action would like to see firearms all secured, secured so that kids don't have access to them, so that the ammunition is stored safely away, as well as the firearm secured. And we just want the responsibility to be on adults, not on children. We could talk about secure storage, and that would help the situation. You don't have a situation where a child has to make the decision as to whether or not they're going to run away, stop, don't touch, tell a grown-up if the firearms are secured by responsible gun owners.
Now, if not a gun safety program like this one, what do you think should be put in place in Kansas to address gun violence?
One of the things that would really help is a secure storage law. Secure storage laws require gun owners to keep their firearms securely stored, and if someone were to use a firearm that was stolen or unsecured in a shooting, whosever firearm that is would be held responsible for keeping their firearms unsecured.
Okay. Could you talk about some of the legislation possibly that's been brought up in Kansas thus far relating to that?
Yes, there were 2 secure storage bills that were brought in. One was brought in the House and one in the Senate, and neither of those had a hearing.
Why do you think there are some people in the legislature that are hesitant to move in the direction of maybe some of the bills that you mentioned regarding safe storage laws?
Rebecca, I don't know, and I wish I did. I can only assume that maybe it's because the NRA is such a powerful group. I hope that that changes. I hope that we can begin to work together as Kansans and look at measures that will really keep Kansas kids and all Kansans safe from gun violence, because the bottom line is that we all want to keep our families and our children and our communities safe from gun violence.
Now, when we come back, we've seen several shootings in the U.S. in recent months. Where do we go from here? Shannon's going to give her take on that right after the break. You're watching Inside Kansas Politics.
Find great authentic Mexican food at the Mexican Taco Shop. Our locations at 1901 Southwest 10th in Topeka and 419 West 6th in Junction City are always open. Dine in, drive through, or carry out. Or visit our 37th and Burlingame location. Open 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Quick lunches between 1 and 1:30, plus free coffee. 3 convenient locations, 2 in Topeka and 1 in Junction City. Take a short trip to Mexico at the Mexican Taco Shop.
Blue River Traders' large showroom features unique, custom-made rustic lodge and western furniture, plus accessories. Check out our antler chandeliers, largest exclusive supplier of willow tree. Blue River Traders in Manhattan.
The teams, the prospects, the picks. The NFL Draft is here, and we have it covered from Kansas City. Join us this week for the latest insights and updates. Local coverage of the NFL Draft is sponsored by these fine sponsors.
They say grief is the price we pay for love. Join Midland Care as we remember those we've loved at the Celebration Walk on Friday, May 12th. The Celebration Walk is an evening of live music, a butterfly release, reading of the names, and thousands of luminaries lit at dusk. The Celebration Walk raises funds for hospice, Meals on Wheels, and grief support, especially for those without the resources to pay. Your participation provides innovative care solutions for people in our community. Learn more at midlandcare.org.
Next live, Nikolai Coster-Waldau and Otto Asando. Plus, we're celebrating spring all week long.
Monday morning at 11 on 27 KSNT.
Happy birthday, Miss Kelly Clarkson.
Thank you. We are celebrating my birthday with country star Jimmy Allen. Plus,
what's up?
We catch up with some of our favorite musicians.
Monday at 1 on 27 KSNT.
Welcome back to Inside Kansas Politics. I'm Rebecca Chung, continuing our conversation on gun violence and safety with Shannon Little from Moms Demand Action. Shannon, we've seen several shootings over the past few months. One of the most recent took place at a dance studio in Alabama. Now, it was a Sweet 16 birthday party. At least 4 young people were killed. 32 others were injured. When you see something like this, I think it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, it hits. It's a devastating situation. Now, we saw another school shooting in Nashville, Tennessee last month, then one at a bank in Louisville, Kentucky. What do you think is behind the amount of shootings that we're seeing?
I don't know what each of the causations are behind all of the shootings that we have been seeing recently. We did see an uprise in gun violence and gun sales during COVID-19. during the pandemic, and that is a factor that has played into more gun violence coming out of the pandemic. I think that the proliferation of guns and the NRA's agenda of gun everywhere certainly is a contributing factor as well.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit more?
I think that Kansas and other states like Kansas have done a lot to peel back the gun laws that have been in place, and it makes it easier for there to be guns everywhere. And when you have guns everywhere, you're going to have more gun violence.
Okay. Now, I also want to take a look at some of the statistics from the CDC on gun violence. According to the CDC, in 2020, there were 45,222 firearm-related deaths in the United States. That's about 124 people dying from a firearm-related injury each day. More than half of firearm-related deaths were suicides, and more than 4 out of every 10 were firearm homicides. That's on a national level. But what are we seeing here in Kansas?
In Kansas, we're seeing about an average of 456 deaths by firearm each year, and we're seeing an additional 655 individuals that are injured by firearm violence.
Okay. And I know you have some more statistics from every town as well. On an average year, it says that 434 people die and 655 are wounded by guns in Kansas.
Yes,
right.
That's correct.
An average of 45 children and teens die by guns every year, of which 48% of these deaths are suicides and 48% are homicides. Gun violence in Kansas is costing taxpayers, every town is saying, $1,958 per person each year. When you hear statistics like this, what is your reaction?
It's shocking and unnecessary because gun violence is preventable and can be prevented. Our families and our communities shouldn't have to live and die like this and be concerned that they or one of their family members could encounter gun violence during their lifetime. It's preventable and we need to work to stop it.
All right, and that was your look inside Kansas politics. If you want to keep up to date on all things Kansas politics, then follow us on social media. Follow us on Twitter at InKansasPolitics and on Facebook. Just search Inside Kansas Politics. We'll also post the full video on YouTube. Just search KSNT News and check ksnt.com/inside-kansas-politics for past episodes. If you have a story you want Kansas state legislators to hear, let us know. We'll see you here same time, same place next week.